Well, a lot of people ask the question, does more seat time in the deer stand equal more success in harvesting bucks and killing bigger bucks? And I'm here to tell you guys that in a lot of instances, the answer to that question is yes. I think there's been a lot of debate on this topic lately on YouTube, social media. You guys see people talking about, you're actually better off sitting on the couch and that you can kill more and bigger bucks when you spend more time sitting on the couch watching the ball game because you are picking your days more precisely and you're doing more of a surgical approach on which days you sit and when. And this really boils down to, you guys, what your situation is. You got to remember the people saying that you'll kill more deer and bigger deer by sitting on the couch, they're referring to the, I would say, probably the minority of hunters who have the immense privilege of owning or having access to private land. They can put in manicured food plots, and they're going in for more of that precision approach when that buck is daylighting that they're going after, in which case it makes more sense to spend more time on the couch. Don't burn out your food plot, for example, or your small hunting parcel. And in that case, I would concede that that does make sense, that you don't want to burn out your small woods, your small property, or overhunt a food source or a deer stand in that situation. But there's a whole lot of us in a huge swath of the country that doesn't have that uh, situation where they get access to this private land like that, whether you own it or lease it or have permission through family or someone. For the rest of us, it's a lot of time on public land and low deer density type situations. And that's really the big thing that you got to think about in your situation. Are you someone who is hunting in that big woods, uh, low deer density situation? I know northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota. You go out east up into the big woods country of Pennsylvania, all the way sweeping north and east up into Vermont and Maine and New York, upstate New York. They have really big woods situations with low deer density throughout the landscape as a whole. And in those situations, it absolutely and 100% matters how much seat time you spend in the tree. Now, we got to think about what time of year we're spending all this time in the tree. Does it make sense to go sit dark till dark, do an all day sit in some public land, big woods scenario on October 4th? Well, probably not. I would never do something like that. I'm spending all of my seat time, and when I am grinding those seat hours on my public land big wood spots, I'm doing so where it coincides with that peak daylight activity bell curve during the rut. A lot of you guys who have watched my videos know that I do own, I'm fortunate enough to own a small piece of private land. I do food plots there. My dad owns some land and we put in some food plots there and we have a ton of fun with it and we have a great time with it and we consider ourselves lucky. But I hunt both. For the first 20 some odd years of my hunting career, we had no private land or access to it in my family, and it was 100% public land in those really low deer density situations. And in those cases, one of the best things that you have control over, I mean, you want to find a good spot first, right? And I've made a lot of videos on that: clear cuts, swamp islands, mock scrapes, rut funnels, all that. As long as you're doing all that kind of stuff, one of the biggest elements of your success that you have control over is how much time you spend in the woods. And that is 100% correlated to people's success rate. Where we hunt, people at my camp, where we hunt up in northeastern Minnesota in the big woods public land areas, those guys that are getting it done season in and season out are those that are stoically grinding hours on stand, and it takes a lot of time. And that is a scenario where it absolutely helps your odds, it improves your odds of connecting on a buck because the deer densities are so low. If you think of a situation near a food plot, for example, and like let's take the food plots that I put in on my private land, it artificially inflates the carrying capacity and the deer numbers right around that food plot in the bedding thickets around it. You suddenly have a concentration of deer that wouldn't have existed naturally if you didn't have the food plot there. And in those cases, by sitting on stand too many times, going in and out of there, bumping deer if you are, hopefully you're not, but you eventually bump some if you're near a food source or a high deer density bedding area. They smell your tracks at night. It makes sense that in those situations with those really elevated and concentrated deer numbers, you could be doing more damage if you overhunt those areas and you're putting too much scent out there. And it makes sense to have more of a surgical strike in those situations. But in those big woods, real low and scattered densities situations, typically public land type applications, a lot of times if you get your deer stand up, let's say at the beginning of the season or whenever it's legal to on the public land that you're hunting, maybe it's the spring before, you can let everything calm down, get shooting lanes trimmed, pruned, whatever that may be, let things settle down, and then you don't even go in there until, say, Halloween to hunt a rut funnel, for example. That buck may only move through that rut funnel periodically throughout the fall. So even if you hunted it every day for 5 days straight, he doesn't know that because he hasn't been around there. He's a mile away in a big clear cut off in some remote ridge somewhere, chasing does over there for a day or two. And then he does a big looping sweep and comes back through this rut funnel. You may have been hunting that for 3 days straight, grinding hours on stand, leaving a foot trail, a scent every day, coming in and out. And he would have no idea about that. And it might be the first time he's come through there, that rut, and you connect on him. So it's a little bit different. Think of it as those two different cases, that really highly concentrated, um, in really unnaturally high carrying capacity situations, right tight to the food plot and that property with those bedding thickets around. It might be an ag field too, things like that. Or those really dispersed situations where you have the luxury of hunting a stand over and over and over. And in that rut funnel application that I'm talking about, I think you do some damage if you are hunting an area that you know is a bedding area and you're flushing out does, bumping deer, they're smelling you. You are doing damage and diminishing your odds of connecting over time. But in a lot of cases, you can minimize that type of thing by hunting on a swamp island, for example. I've made videos on that. As long as you have good access that T-bones the line of movement through a swamp island, you could really hunt that almost unlimited numbers of times throughout a fall and do next to no damage. So there's rut funnel strategies like that to try to minimize the damage you're causing with your scent in and out of a spot all fall. So something to think about there. I wanted to clarify this because I see a lot of talk about this online right now, and I feel like some people are getting inadvertently misguided on this topic. It 100% matters what type of situation you're in and what type of situation you're hunting. Again, I hunt in both of these and I tailor my approach, whether it's on our private land by our food plots. It's a whole different and more passive and surgical approach to, comparing that with our public land spots with really low density deer, scattered food, random meandering food sources throughout vast stretches of cover. In those cases, we are absolutely grinding hours on stand. We're doing all day sits and we're just maximizing those hours, because when we look at the time of day when those bucks come through those big woods rut funnel type areas, it might be 8 a.m., it might be 1 in the afternoon, or it might be 4 p.m. that evening. It is so scattered and so random when they come through these rut funnels. You really have to be there all day in order to maximize your odds. Hopefully this cleared it up for you guys. If you liked the video, do me one favor and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy content like this, I'll be putting out a lot more videos this winter. And until next time, take care. I will catch you on the next video.